The Blank Slate by Steven Pinker. Here's a wild thought. What if one of the most beautiful, hopeful ideas from the last 100 years is actually kind of dangerous? You've definitely heard this idea before, probably in dozens of ways. It's that quiet voice telling us we can become anything we want, that we're all born as blank canvases just waiting for life to paint on us. Your parents, teachers, society, they're holding the paintbrush. It's the belief that human nature isn't set in stone, but something we can shape and perfect. Just build the right society, the right schools, the right families, and boom, we can engineer better humans. No more selfishness, violence, or prejudice. This is the blank slate. For decades, it wasn't just a theory. It was basically the law of the land in intellectual circles. Questioning it didn't just make you wrong. It made you a bad person, a bigot, someone trying to justify oppression and shut down human progress. Then in 2002, a brilliant and fearless cognitive scientist named Steven Pinker dropped a book that took a sledgehammer to this sacred cow. That book, The Blank Slate, The Modern Denial of Human Nature, hit like an earthquake. It sold hundreds of thousands of copies, got nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, and started debates that are still raging today. Pinker, a Harvard professor and one of the world's top minds on language and cognition, made a bold claim. Modern science from genetics, neuroscience, and evolutionary psychology was proving, beyond reasonable doubt, that the blank slate was a myth. He wasn't just saying we're born with a few basic reflexes. He was saying we arrive with a rich, complex, universal human nature, packed with instincts, talents, and tendencies that shape our lives in huge ways. And denying this nature? That wasn't just bad science. It was a disaster for our values, politics, and self-understanding. What we're about to explore might challenge things you've believed your whole life. But here's my promise. By the end, you'll understand three powerful but flawed ideas that have secretly shaped our world. You'll see the stunning scientific discoveries rewriting our story, and you'll realize that accepting our true human nature doesn't make us puppets. It doesn't crush our hopes for a better world. Actually, it might be the only thing that truly sets us free. Let's dive in. To understand Pinker's revolution, we need to meet the empire he was rebelling against. For most of the 20th century, intellectual life was ruled by what Pinker calls a holy trinity of ideas about human nature. These became the default, the respectable position, the only acceptable way to think about ourselves. First up, the star of the show, the blank slate. This idea comes from philosopher John Locke, who imagined the mind as white paper, void of all characters. Nothing's written there at birth. Everything we are, our intelligence, personality, desires, gets inscribed by experience. Society is the author. Your parents, culture, education, they create you. You can see the appeal. If we're all born as identical blank slates, then any differences between people, between men and women, races, rich and poor, must come from different experiences. Prejudice isn't just wrong, it's factually nonsense. We can perfect humanity. Just fix our schools, eliminate poverty, raise kids better, and we can create a new, improved person. Next is the noble savage. Thank philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau for this one. He believed humans in their natural state are peaceful, selfless, and happy. It's civilization with its property, governments, and social classes that corrupts us into greedy, anxious, violent creatures. If that's true, our problems aren't built into us. Evil isn't part of our nature. It's a stain society puts on us. Want a better world? Just tear down the corrupt institutions holding us back. Get back to our natural state. Find paradise. The third piece is the ghost in the machine. This phrase, coined by philosopher Gilbert Ryle, describes René Descartes' idea that the mind is separate from the body. Your body is a physical machine, like a clock. But you, your conscious self, your soul, you're a ghost inhabiting that machine. This ghost is free, not bound by physical laws of cause and effect. It can choose whatever it wants. Deeply comforting, right? We have free will, we're responsible for our choices. There's something more to us than biology, something that survives even when the body breaks down. Together, these three ideas formed the official theory of human nature for over a century. They became like a secular religion for modern intellectuals. Denying them was heresy. But then science started finding cracks in the foundation. Enter Steven Pinker. He argues 4 new sciences have built a completely different, far more realistic picture of human nature. He calls them the 4 bridges from biology to the mental world. Bridge 1. Cognitive science, the science of the mind. For ages, the mind was a complete mystery. Behaviorists like B.F. Skinner just gave up and said, we should only study observable behavior. But starting in the 1950s, the cognitive revolution gave us a powerful new lens. The mind is a kind of computer. Not like your laptop, obviously. But what the mind does can be understood as information processing. Beliefs are data stored in memory. Thinking is running programs that transform that data. Our goals are like feedback loops, constantly comparing where we are to where we want to be, guiding our actions. This one idea that mental life is computation was revolutionary. Why? It kicked out the ghost in the machine. It showed how something non-physical like a reason or intention could have real physical effects, how a purely physical system, the brain, could be intelligent. Machines can be rational. Machines can be creative. Suddenly, we didn't need a ghost to explain minds. But cognitive science did more than evict the ghost. It destroyed the blank slate too. As Pinker says, blank slates don't do anything. An empty sheet just sits there. For learning to happen, something has to be there first. Something to notice patterns, connect ideas, have goals. Philosopher Leibniz nailed it in his reply to Locke. There is nothing in the intellect that was not first in the senses, except the intellect itself. You need innate machinery to do the learning. Death blow to the pure blank slate. You need pre-installed programs at birth. Programs for seeing in 3 dimensions, learning language, understanding other people have minds. Culture doesn't write on a blank slate. It works with a slate already intricately engraved. Bridge 2. Neuroscience, the science of the brain. If the mind is what the brain does, then every thought, feeling, choice is a physical event in your brain tissue. Francis Crick called this the astonishing hypothesis, and it truly is astonishing. When surgeons stimulate part of your brain with an electrode, you have vivid, lifelike experiences. Chemicals in your brain can change your entire personality. When brain tissue dies, pieces of your mind disappear with it. You might lose the ability to recognize faces, or feel empathy, or even be aware of one side of your own body. This tells us Descartes was wrong. The mind isn't indivisible. It has parts, physical parts. Neuroscience shows us the self, the I, that feels in charge, is another clever brain illusion. Work with split-brain patients, whose hemispheres are surgically separated, shows we can literally have 2 independent consciousnesses in one skull, each making its own choices. Even stranger, the left hemisphere, controlling language, constantly makes up stories to explain the right hemisphere's behavior without any clue what it's really doing. Your conscious mind, Pinker suggests, isn't the president in the Oval Office. It's the press secretary, constantly spinning stories to make you look good. And this brain, this intricate machine, isn't formless putty at birth. The basic architecture, its lobes, nuclei, major pathways, gets laid out by genes before you're even born. This innate structure shapes abilities and temperaments. Studies show gray matter in your frontal lobes, influenced by genes, correlates with intelligence. Albert Einstein's brain had unusually shaped regions for spatial and mathematical reasoning. These aren't sculpted by experience. They're our biological inheritance. Bridge 3. Behavioral genetics, studying how genes affect behavior. Probably the most controversial science, and the one people fear most. But the findings, Pinker argues, are undeniable. They're summarized in what psychologist Eric Turkheimer calls the 3 laws of behavioral genetics. First law: all human behavioral traits are heritable. What does that mean? Not that your destiny's written in DNA. Heritable is technical. It means a portion of differences between people can be traced to gene differences. How do we know? Classic studies of twins and adoptees. Identical twins sharing 100% of genes are remarkably similar, even raised in different families from birth. More similar than fraternal twins, sharing only 50% of genes. Biological siblings are far more similar than adoptive siblings, who grow up together but share no genes. The conclusion is inescapable. From IQ to the 5 major personality dimensions: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, to things as specific as religiosity or divorce likelihood, about half the variation links to genes. This demolishes a century of parenting advice. Any study finding correlations between parent behavior and child outcomes is basically worthless without controlling for shared genes. Do talkative parents have talkative kids because they talk to them a lot, or because the same talkative genes got passed down? Without adoption studies, you can't know. But here's where the second law comes in, even more shocking. Second law: being raised in the same family has smaller effects than genes. Think about that. All the things parenting experts tell you to obsess over: stimulating toys, quality time, parenting style, authoritative versus permissive, all the things siblings share growing up. They have little to no lasting effect on intelligence or personality. How do we know? Because adult siblings raised in the same home are no more similar than siblings raised in different homes. And adopted siblings, raised together but sharing no genes, grow up no more similar than 2 random strangers. One of the most stunning discoveries in psychology history. Doesn't mean parents don't matter. Of course they do. Huge impact on happiness, skills, and relationships. But they don't seem to mold children's fundamental personalities. The shared home environment isn't the key. This leads to the third law, the deepest mystery. Third law: a substantial portion of variation in complex human traits isn't accounted for by genes or families. If genes explain about 50%, shared family environment close to 0%, that leaves 50% unexplained. This is the unique or non-shared environment, everything that happens to one sibling but not the other. But what is it? This is psychology's frontier. Could be peer groups. Psychologist Judith Rich Harris, in her groundbreaking book The Nurture Assumption, argues children are socialized not by parents but by peers. They don't try to be like their parents. They try to be like other kids. Language, culture, personality, all shaped in the peer group crucible. Or it could be just chance. Random events during brain development in the womb, the cosmic ray, mutating a gene. Unique life experiences, the bike fall, the chance meeting, the inspiring teacher. These unique events might make even identical twins raised together into different people. Whatever this unique environment is, the 3 laws tell a powerful story. We're not just gene products, but we're also not family upbringing products. We're a complex mix of genes, peers, and chance. The slate is anything but blank. Bridge 4: Evolutionary psychology. This science asks why our minds are designed the way they are. It applies Darwin's natural selection logic to the human mind. The mind, like the body, isn't a random collection of parts. It's a system of mental organs, each shaped by evolution to solve problems our ancestors faced. We have a language instinct, intuitive physics to understand objects, intuitive biology for living things, number sense, and a suite of social emotions like sympathy, gratitude, guilt, anger, letting us navigate the complex social world of cooperation and conflict. Evolutionary psychology is the ultimate antidote to the noble savage. The natural world, as George Williams put it, is grossly immoral. Natural selection is maximizing short-sighted selfishness. No foresight, no compassion. Doesn't mean we're all ruthless egoists. It means altruism and cooperation are special states needing explanation. They don't just happen. The explanation? Under certain conditions, our genes do better by building sometimes unselfish brains. The two main ways, nepotism, helping genetic relatives, and reciprocity, trading favors. These principles, Pinker argues, explain the deepest structure of our social lives and the deepest roots of our suffering. Every human relationship, from parent-child love to spouse bonds to friendships, mixes shared and conflicting interests. A parent and child share 50% of genes, but the child is 100% related to itself. This sets up natural conflict over how much parental investment the child deserves, the evolutionary root of sibling rivalry and parent-offspring conflict. Husband and wife can have perfectly aligned genetic interests in their children, but infidelity's possibility creates fundamental conflict. Reproduction's logic predicts men, on average, will desire more sexual variety, while women will be choosier. This difference, Pinker argues, drives endless friction between sexes. Even friendship is a delicate dance. We're designed to cooperate but also to detect cheaters, those taking favors without returning them. This creates moralistic emotions, gratitude for cooperators, anger at freeloaders. This view of human social life is far more tragic than the noble savage's utopian vision. It suggests conflict isn't an aberration but inherent to the human condition. So these four sciences, cognitive science, neuroscience, behavioral genetics, and evolutionary psychology, give us a new picture of human nature. The mind isn't a blank slate, we're not noble savages, and there's no ghost in the machine. We're evolution's product, with complex, innate, universal human nature. But this new picture terrifies people. Pinker devotes much of the book to dissecting four great fears this new science evokes. First fear, the fear of inequality. If people aren't blank slates, but born with different innate abilities and temperaments, does that justify discrimination and oppression? If some groups are, on average, different, does that make racism or sexism rational? Pinker's answer, absolutely not. Equality isn't an empirical claim that people are interchangeable. It's a moral principle that individuals shouldn't be judged by their group's average properties. We condemn discrimination, not because all groups are biologically identical, but because it's wrong to penalize people for things they can't control. Our shared human nature, our universal desire for dignity and fairness, is the very foundation opposing bigotry. Second fear, the fear of imperfectibility. If we're born with selfish or violent instincts, are hopes for social progress futile? Why try making the world better if people are rotten to the core? This, Pinker argues, rests on two fallacies. First, the naturalistic fallacy. Whatever is natural is good. Biology tells us what is, not what ought to be. As Katharine Hepburn says in The African Queen, nature, Mr. Allnut, is what we are put in this world to rise above. Second fallacy, if we have ignoble motives, we're slaves to them. But the mind is complex with many parts. We may have selfish or violent impulses, but we also have moral sense, empathy capacity, and frontal lobes, letting us foresee action consequences. Social progress isn't erasing human nature, but using some parts, like reason and sympathy, to overcome others. Third fear, the fear of determinism. If our thoughts and actions are products of a physical brain shaped by genes and evolution, where's free will and personal responsibility? If a murderer's brain is different, can we still hold him accountable? Pinker argues this fear confuses explanation with exculpation. Explaining behavior isn't excusing it. Holding people responsible isn't about mystical soul choices. It's practical deterrence policy. We punish people to make bad behavior unprofitable for them and anyone else tempted to follow. Biological explanations of criminal motives don't change. that their brains contain systems responding to punishment threats. Scientific understanding of behavior doesn't eliminate responsibility, it helps us apply it more effectively. Fourth fear, the fear of nihilism. If we're just biological machines and our genes' only goal is replication, do our lives have no higher meaning or purpose? Are love, beauty, and morality shams? This fear, Pinker suggests, confuses two explanation levels. It confuses the ultimate cause of our evolution, genes, metaphorical, selfishness, with the proximate cause of our experience, real motives in our brains. A gene's selfish strategy can be building genuinely unselfish brains. The love we feel for children or spouses is real. The moral sense driving us to seek justice is real. These aren't illusions just because they have evolutionary explanations. Understanding their evolutionary roots can make them seem even more profound. As Kant wrote, two things fill the mind with ever new and increasing admiration and awe, the starry heavens above and the moral law within. Science is now beginning to understand that moral law's origins within us. Having diffused these fears, Pinker applies this new understanding to hot-button issues. On politics, he shows how the great left-right divide is rooted in different human nature visions. The left traditionally embraced a utopian vision based on the blank slate, believing human nature is malleable and society perfectible. The right traditionally held a tragic vision, believing humans are inherently flawed, and we must rely on time-tested traditions and institutions to check our darker impulses. Pinker argues, evidence from human nature sciences largely vindicates the tragic vision, but that doesn't mean we must be conservatives. A Darwinian left can acknowledge our limitations while still working to reduce suffering and expand our sympathy circle. On violence, he argues violence isn't a disease or cultural fad. It's a strategy that, under certain circumstances, paid off in evolutionary history. Understanding violence's logic, why people compete for resources, fear neighbors, fight for honor, is key to reducing it. The most effective violence reduction technique ever invented, he argues, is democratic government with a monopoly on legitimate force use, Hobbes's Leviathan. It removes incentives for plunder, preemption, and reputation building, driving so much conflict. On gender, he argues, it's a mistake for feminism to chain itself to the dogma that men and women are psychologically interchangeable. Evidence for innate, average differences in talents, temperaments, and life priorities is overwhelming. Equity feminism, demanding equal rights and opportunities, perfectly fits this evidence. But gender feminism, insisting on identical outcomes like 50-50 representation in all professions, collides with reality. Respecting women, he argues, means respecting their choices, even if those choices, on average, differ from men's. On children, he drives home the three laws of behavioral genetics, revolutionary implications. The belief that parents can mold children like clay is myth. This realization, he argues, is ultimately liberating. It frees parents from anxiety and guilt of trying to be perfect parenting machines. It lets them enjoy their relationship with children for what it is, a human relationship, rather than a social engineering project. And finally, on the arts, Pinker argues elite arts and humanities' 20th century decline traces to their human nature denial. Modernism and postmodernism, in their disdain for beauty, pleasure, and narrative, cut themselves off from the very aesthetic instincts making art a universal human passion. Art's revitalization, he suggests, will come from new consilience with mind sciences, a return to art speaking to our shared humanity's deepest parts. In the end, the blank slate isn't pessimistic. It's a call for intellectual honesty. We can't build a better world on comforting fictions. We must have courage to know ourselves, to understand the intricate, flawed, and beautiful nature making us who we are. Because only by understanding that nature can we hope to transcend its limitations and live up to our highest ideals. Reading the blank slate for the first time feels like having the rug pulled out from under you. It's unsettling. All these comfortable ideas that we can be anything, that our children's futures are in our hands, that our problems are entirely society's fault, they start to wobble. But once you find your footing, you realize you're standing on much firmer ground. That's this book's real power. It doesn't just tear down old ideas. It gives you a new, more solid foundation for thinking about everything that matters. For me, the most powerful lesson in the Blank Slate is the liberation from letting go of the perfectible human myth. The 20th century was ravaged by utopian ideologies, from left and right, believing they could engineer a new man. These projects always ended in tyranny and mass suffering because they were based on complete ignorance of the raw material they were trying to shape. They forgot, as Madison and the American founders knew, that if men were angels, no government would be necessary. Pinker reminds us the best. Most humane political systems aren't those assuming the best of us, but those designed to withstand our worst. Democracy, with its checks and balances and free markets harnessing self-interest, are brilliant social technologies built on realistic, tragic human nature views. They're systems designed for real humans, not the angels we wish we were. This realism has profound personal effects too. Here are a few simple ways to start applying this thinking to your own life, right now. First, practice separating is from ought. When you learn about a human tendency, say our innate status craving or bias toward our kin, don't jump to concluding that's how things should be. Recognize it for what it is. Part of our evolutionary inheritance. Your values, your morality, come from your choice to rise above some instincts and cultivate others, like reason and empathy. Understanding your nature is the first step to mastering it. Second, be kinder to yourself and your parents. If you've ever felt guilty for not living up to some perfect ideal, or blamed your parents for every character flaw, this book is a powerful antidote. You're not a lump of clay. You were born with unique temperament, unique talents. Your parents didn't create you, they helped you grow. This doesn't let anyone off the hook for cruelty or neglect, but it frees us from the crushing burden of false developmental theory. It lets you take ownership of your own life. Finally, cultivate awe for your own mind. The Blank Slate is, at its heart, a deeply disrespectful view of humanity. It sees us as passive, empty vessels. Pinker's vision is opposite. He shows us the human mind is the most complex and wonderful thing in the known universe. It's a system of wonderfully complex faculties, giving us the power of language, reason, art, love. It's the source of all our triumphs and tragedies. That was a summary of The Blank Slate by Steven Pinker. We've explored some of the biggest ideas from this incredible book today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The true magic of a book like this happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or single brilliant sentence connects with you in unexpected ways. This summary is just a starting point, a way for you to decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or challenged your thinking, I truly hope you'll pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning new facts. It's an experience that can fundamentally change how you see yourself, your society, and your place in the world. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please take a moment to click that like button and, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep exploring the best ideas in the world, together.